Another day in Risk of Rain 2. Is there any game quite like this, where you can loop through the stages, getting stronger and stronger over time, coming across crazy monsters to fight, and while you're doing the best you can, suddenly, it all can just be taken away from you? Don't let this happen to you. For the longest time, people would tell you that the best way to loop and survive long runs in Risk of Rain 2 is to just avoid getting hit by enemies. And they would be correct in saying that, because trying to beat enemies defensively, once you get to the scaling levels of endgame Risk of Rain 2, is just not viable. Sure, you can get up to 1000 health, just like I am showing you right now. And I have a lot of speed to avoid enemy attacks, but if I just wanted to sit down at this level with all of my skills and abilities, I would just die and lose about 1000 HP in half a second because I stood still. It doesn't matter my defensive items, it doesn't matter that I had Warped Echo and multiple power elixirs and Bison Stakes. None of that is enough to save you from Risk of Rain 2's enemy scaling. So how do you live forever in a Risk of Rain 2 run? How do you become immortal? Well, that question started to have an answer with the introduction of the first DLC to Risk of Rain 2, and the introduction of an item that has given you full invincibility for whenever it's active. That item being Safer Spaces, a corruption of tougher times, which guarantees you immunity from all damage once on a recharging cooldown after 15 seconds. Now, this corrupting tougher times is the big deal, because you may say to yourself, Kilroy, couldn't you be invincible with enough tougher times? And the problem is no, because tougher times could never stack reasonably to a point where you are fully invincible from damage. It stacks in a way that is not additive, so I think the closest you can ever get to invincibility would require tens of thousands of these little teddy bears, and that's not feasible in any run, and that's not even a guarantee when you have that many. However, when you get Safer Spaces, you don't have to worry about odds. You have a guarantee invincibility buff. Now, the problem with that normally is that it disappears once activated, and it takes a while to come back. And even if you want to stack this item a ton, you're not going to get that immediate recharge, just like you're not going to get infinite chance of invincibility with tougher times. However, what you can do is combine Safer Spaces with Blast Shower. Blast Shower takes away the cooldown of the Safer Spaces buff whenever it's activated. So if you have infinite Blast Shower activations, you can technically have infinite Safer Spaces buffs. So this plus Safer Spaces theoretically equals invincibility in Risk of Rain 2. I say theoretically because let me show you what actually happens with tons of stacks of Blast Shower on Safer Spaces. I am now here in-game with 1 stack of Safer Spaces, 5 stacks of Gesture of the Drowned, and 20 stacks of Fuel Cells. And as you can see in the bottom right corner, and with the massive amount of activations on my character, this means I have near permanent activations of the Blast Shower item. And that means theoretically, I should just be invincible now, because I have my Safer Spaces buff being activated almost forever. And I'm going to show you how long I can survive just by sitting still and taking hits. I survived for probably like 10 seconds. That was basically nothing. I'm going to run that back one time just for proof. I have a bit more than 20 fuel cells. I have 100. And you can see this is being activated to refresh my Safer Spaces so much that I look like the literal sun. So, is this enough refreshing? No, it is not. I am still dead. Because That one Lesser Wisp shot has 3 attacks in it. And 3 attacks means one of them gets blocked, and the rest of them instantly bypass my shield and kill me. So, no, to everyone who wants to shout the praises of Blast Shower and Safer Spaces ever since Survivors of the Void came out, no, that is not invincibility in Risk of Rain 2. It never has been, and sadly, it's just not been possible to be invincible in the past because of it. But that's not the only item that has been added to Risk of Rain 2 since the game came out. No, ladies and gentlemen. Since Risk of Rain 2 came out, it has had a second DLC, one that I know everyone loves just as much as the first one. A DLC called Seekers of the Storm. And while that DLC wasn't so good at launch, you may look at my past videos for that nonsense, you can see now this item, Unstable Transmitter. Falling below 25% health gives you 75% of your maximum health as a temporary barrier. Now you may ask yourself, what worth is that in a game where enemies are doing tens of thousands of damage to your health, which might be 1,000 at that point? And I would say you are correct. The 75% health as a temporary barrier on its own is not valuable. However, there's something that is valuable about this item, which is a secondary effect many people have talked about, called one-shot protection. You see, when Risk of Rain 2 was first released, there was a mechanic called one-shot protection, which meant that when you were at full HP, no one attack from an enemy could kill you. And that mechanic was extremely broken, because the original release of Risk of Rain 2 also had an item called Shaped Glass, which you may see in my item bar at this moment. Shaped Glass doubles all of your damage for each stack. Cut that. As I was saying, Shaped Glass doubles your damage for each stack that you have. And by having 6 stacks of it, that means my damage is multiplied by 2 to the power of 6, which is 2, 4, 8, 16, 64. I do 64 times my normal damage right now. Now, that would be balanced, normally, in the way it is in this version of Risk of Rain 2, with the fact that I get one shot with any damage dealt to me, as you saw a couple seconds ago. However, with one-shot protection working the way it did in the original release of Risk of Rain 2, it meant that even when you had an item like Shaped Glass, one-shot protection still applied, which meant that in the original release of this game, if you had 2 HP and you were hit by an enemy, and 2 was your max HP, you wouldn't die. You would go down to 1 HP instead. And that was extremely broken, because it meant you could get all the benefits of Shaped Glass with essentially none of the negatives, because even when you do get brought down to 1 HP, you could heal it up instantly with some item, and then have your one-shot protection returned to you. And as you just saw before, and now, one-shot protection no longer exists for Shaped Glass in this game. A nerf that was very needed, but very sad nonetheless. However, this is where the unstable transmitter comes into play. Because like I said before, ignore the fact that you are getting HP back on getting low HP. What the unstable transmitter really does is gives you an HP threshold that reinstates one-shot protection into the game. I am at 3 HP because of the massive amount of Shaped Glasses I have. Any enemy in this game deals at least 3 damage with all of their attacks. However, while I have the unstable transmitter active, I do not die. I die after it is activated, but once the initial activation happens, I don't take damage, essentially restoring one-shot protection to the game. Now, this would be balanced normally by the fact that the unstable transmitter has an extremely long cooldown. At 1 stack of that item, the unstable transmitter's cooldown is, I believe, 120 seconds or 2 minutes. Now, it gets better upon stacking, but even then, oh, sorry, I am a fool. it is on 45 seconds. Still an eternity in Risk of Rain 2 time. Minus 10% per stack is also nothing. It goes from 45 to what? 41 or 40, depending on rounding. However, you may see, based on what I was showing you before, what is amazing about this item, and that is that this rechargeable buff is something that can be reinstated by the Blast Shower. And not only that, this effect can be combined with the Safer Spaces effect. So with the combination of Risk of Rain 2 1.0's one-shot protection and Risk of Rain 2's Survivors of the Void Safer Spaces item, we can now achieve permanent immortality in this game with one stack of Unstable Transmitter, one stack of Safer Spaces, and a whole bunch of Fuel Cells, Gestures of the Drowned, and Blast Showers. And let me show you what that looks like. I have brought myself to relatively late stage Risk of Rain 2. 12 stages cleared. 30 minutes isn't that long, but it's long enough to get the enemies up to a pretty strong point where like Malachites are spawning and very strong enemies exist in the world. And I am going to stand in one place in the middle of enemies and show you what my survival is like at this point. Pardon me, I'm actually gonna go up and get a drink and some food. I'll see you all in a bit. So, how's this going? I'm still alive. Who could have guessed? So, yeah, thanks for watching, everyone. That's how you become invincible in Risk of Rain 2.